everybody. Welcome to Coffee Hour. My name is Paul Abernathy. I am your host here at Coffee Hour, which we come to you every day, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Forgot to silence my phone again. All right. I need my silence warriors out there to remind me to silence my stuff all around me when I go live. Welcome again. If you've never been here before, we don't just talk code. We talk everything electrical, all types of things, whether it's HR, maybe question at work, something that you're running into on the job site. We do talk code, we do lessons. We're in the middle of a series right now where we're just looking at the different wiring methods. Today, we're going to look at, it should be able to finish on the hour, but I keep saying that. Somebody's going to tell me, yeah, right. But 320, where we're talking about armored cables, the earlier and the oldest cousin to MC cable, but it's the armored cable we're talking about today. And trying to go over some of the little nuances involved with that. But again, I am open to questions and things. I will tell you, for those that have sent in recently some Let's Ask Paul stuff, that will all be answered on some podcasts here coming up in the next day. So again, we'll be recording them in the studio today, doing some podcasting. I have to catch up. I have so many Let's Ask Paul questions that are being sent in to me. And again, if you have questions that you want answered, I will do my best. You can agree to disagree, but I will do my best to answer your questions. You just go to Paul Abernathy. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. PaulAbernathy.com. Paul, P-A-U-L, Abernathy, Abernathy.com. And you go there and you can fill out the form and just submit it to me. I don't care who you are. Okay. You may like me or you may hate me. It's okay. I'll answer questions for haters as well. It's all good. I stand behind every comment or every informal interpretation that I may give. I stand behind it because it's what I truly believe, whether you agree or disagree. I'm going to give you it and you can take it or leave it or whatnot. And that's just how I roll. No BS here. I try to share with you everything that I can share with you. Yesterday, folks, I was out in the field. I had a call where electrician had some issues and went out in the field to look at a project. Talk about a freaking mess, folks. This was a mess. I've seen some nasty projects, but this is a nasty project. This was a house that was a fairly large house, but they hired some guy. I'm not even going to call him an electrician, to come in and try to rewire things without opening up the walls. And again, it's a tough challenge, but he had junction boxes everywhere. So the electrician went in there and pulled out the ceiling because he wouldn't do it without pulling out the ceiling. He said, I'm not trying to climb through all that insulation in this old ass home and try to. Anyway, there were junction boxes hidden in the ceiling. There was junction boxes hidden everywhere, like 17 different junction boxes where the guy made splices and then tried to hide them up in the ceiling, and not in the attic where it's accessible, literally in where they had formed, like say, a drop ceiling where it was 10 feet high and they dropped it down like to 9 and used that space above a ceiling to put junction boxes that you didn't even know were there. And they didn't even put covers on the damn things. That's even, I mean, bad enough to put the boxes there. Nothing was secured, nothing was supported. I did share a picture on TikTok yesterday about their stapling, because walls that they were remodeling and redoing, they hired this guy or gal to come in and do the electrical. And I bet between a 4-foot span, there must have been 15 staples. I mean, it's just, again, that's not against code, but at the end of the day, really? I mean, just that was indicative of how sloppy the work was. So we got to do better. Now, do I think it was an electrician? No, I don't. I think somebody posing. We had a poser that was trying to be an electrician. But at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, this is a noble trade. We just had somebody on TikTok. My eyes are getting worse because of the diabetes, but I couldn't see the name. But we had somebody over there that got their master's license. And again, I tell you folks out there, if you're a journeyman, always strive for your master's. It doesn't care whether you required in your job or whether you're going to get a promotion, or it doesn't matter. Okay. Your goal as an electrician should be always to strive to get to the pinnacle of your profession. Just like a doctor, just like a lawyer. Look, the more we start taking pride and stop watching these stupid ass videos of people effing around on job sites and playing around, the more that we, and again, if you don't like me, I'm going to lose followers because of that. That's fine. I am not the kind of guy that just screws around because I care too much about this profession. I want to have the best looking trucks. I want to have the best looking shirts and better than everybody else. I want to look the best so that when I'm talking with my customer, that I have a relationship. My brother, for example, has such a wonderful relationship with his customers that is quite incredible. I also saw him yesterday, and he, the relationship he has is great. I'm more dry with my customers. He's very professional, very tact, doesn't say bad things, always looks good, always has, but he's very good at forming relationships with customers. Now, my problem with that is if I form a relationship with somebody like that, the question is, do I feel bad charging them for change orders or charging them extra? No, I never felt bad about that. Todd does. Okay, he'll like, no, I can't charge him for this or that. So we are different in that sense, but a great good repertoire with his customer, that type of thing. I got to see meet one of his customers and some work he was doing, and they love him. So at the end of the day, I take being an electrician with a lot of pride. That's why I wear the hats. That's why I promote it. Okay, that type of thing because I believe in our profession and you should too. So you should always be striving to get to the top of your pinnacle. The CMECP is the top of the pinnacle, in my opinion, for master electricians. You got nowhere else to go. That is the extra stretch on the memory by going into CMECP. So I believe it's the pinnacle when it comes to learning at least the mental part, which is the NEC. So anything thinking. All right. So anyway, you know what the topic is for today, and my little introduction. Like my Jimmy Fallon uh, monologue. Although I can't stand Jimmy Fallon or any of those late night dudes. But anyway, that's my monologue. Get your license, keep learning. You never know enough. I learn something new every day. Um, and it never ceases to amaze me the stuff that people will do, right? Even going out on the field and looking at some of the stuff that guy did on that one job, I just shook my head and went. And then the owners were like, well, we had a previous electrician in here and I couldn't help but I was holding it back because I was laughing. I was like, yeah, we're using the term electrician loosely in this job. This wasn't even a handyman special. It was really rough. And I've seen some rough stuff. It was like, can you actually charge somebody for this? Anyway, as always, I live vicariously through you folks. I appreciate you coming here every morning, sharing your thoughts, your experiences, what you got going on. If you got some success and you passed an exam or you done something, whether you used our programs or not, it doesn't matter. I love hearing from you. So shout it out in the comments. Don't be shy. If you're sitting in, you've joined us, and you've never shouted out. Come on, shout out. Also, don't forget to visit Fast Tracks Tube and watch some of our videos. What's up, Paul? Glad to have you here from Houston. We got a CMECP in the house. I know we have multiple CMECPs in the house today. What's up, Jason? Glad to have you here, my friend. Adam, welcome, Adam. I am doing well. I can't complain. A little under the weather today for some freaking reason, but it's probably because I went out in the field some yesterday to meet with a contractor. So it's probably more energy than I've expelled in a long time. So that's probably the problem. Okay, Paul is getting soft. Okay, he's not an electrician anymore. He can't do it. So he's not an electrician. I'm sure I'll hear that all over social media today. What's up, new place? Glad to have you here. Good morning. What's up, Frank the Great? Welcome. Glad to have you in the house. There's our other CMECP. What's up, David? Glad to have you here, my friend, down in Southwest Florida. Glad to have you here with us. Let's see. What do we got today? Manny. What's up, Manny? Learning about Article 320. Manny, to tell you the truth, I think Manny's also over on TikTok. For those that don't know, we do stream in the mornings a little earlier than when we go live. You get to see probably the tired Paul. You don't get to see the energy Paul, but over on TikTok behind the scenes, I don't really work on the comments there. It's not because, again, I'm not a big fan of TikTok, but it's really, to be honest with you, it's because I can't see it. I can't see the screen. Okay. So I could probably add something else in the studio here to bigger and stream the TikTok to it. But if they want to join, they can come join the live show. That's what I'm saying. I'd rather have them over on the live show. What's up, Rob? Glad to have you here, my friend. Santana's in the house. Santana, #win. Got that coffee going. This is my first cup. And obviously, Darlene didn't make it. And this is obviously not enough for me today so far. What's up? Let's get our code on. That's what I'm talking about. I love the energy. Dude, there we go. Third CMECP who chooses not to use CMECP after his name. What's up with you, Tom? Good morning. Okay. There you go. Need a vacation. I need a vacation. Every day for me is a vacation, right? I get reminded by my employer all the time that because I work from home, every day is a vacation. I'm just saying. Let's see here. What's up, Ski Addle, skididdly do? What's up? Good morning to you. Hey, that rhymes. What's up, Yusul? Okay. Good morning. There you go. Let's see here. Coffee. Yeah. Paul's always. If I turn Article 320, Paul, into multiple hours, then I am really just like somebody said before. I just like to hear my damn self talk. If that's the case. What's up, Haas? My neighbor right up the road here in Richmond. Let's see. What's up, Alex? Glad to have you here. I see you, Greg, in the house. Jonathan, in the house. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Greg's shouting out good morning. Yeah, Thomas, that's what you call a chuck in a truck. Yeah, just rolling up. The problem was, these owners, here's the worst part about stuff like that. And y'all, I'm sure y'all have all seen this. Y'all can relate to this. They're like in their 80s, late 70s, early 80s. They've been scammed by that guy, and now they have to hire another electrician to come in and clean up this mess. That's why I was at the job with the electrician to clean up this mess. And he's going to charge them. They already paid the first guy because he did run cables, but it's a splices everywhere. It's a mess. So now these poor people are going to get hit again. If they had hired somebody the first time and they had vetted their contractor, check their licenses to see if they have a license, checking their insurance, did their due diligence. Being 80, I'm going to say this is no excuse. And if you're 80 and you have children and your children are obviously going to be in their 50s and 60s, maybe it should be, and they don't help you, shame on them. Because these poor people they've been taken advantage of. And so now it's going to be days of troubleshooting because you don't want to rerun all these cables, but you don't know, they're all going all over the place in junction boxes in the ceiling, up in the attics. And it's a mess. It's going to take 3 or 4 days to troubleshoot. And I gave my advice. That's really why I was there. He wanted me to give him advice because I'm known for those type of things for years, troubleshooting. And my advice was you need to, and it's not novel advice. You need to basically find all the home runs and where they start, and at least narrow down that circuit. So it's one circuit on at a time. There's a lot of new ones that haven't been put in the panel yet, but you got old ones that are still there. I said, start with the old ones, turn the breaker on, get your trace sticker, go out and find out where this circuit is and deconstruct it all the way down till you find the home runs. Once you find the home runs, then start at one end and just methodically work one room at a time and see how you have to piece this puzzle back together and what kind of extra circuits they ran. Because here's the thing, this house was big. It already had circuits run to everything. They didn't expand the square footage. They didn't add that much new, but there's like 15 more circuits that are run and nobody knows where they're run. And I'm sitting there thinking, the square foot didn't go up. The walls, he didn't add a bunch of new walls. Where the hell did all these new circuits come from? And why did he have to tap into the old circuits if you ran all these new circuits? And so I told him, I said, the best thing you can do is start out by finding all the home runs because that's what you don't want to have to take back to the panel if you don't have to. It's already there. And then you can slowly work around the room and try to piece it all together, that type of thing. That was my advice. And then we went over some of the other stuff and, a lot of the violations that are there that he's just going to have to rip out because I'm assuming the first guy that was trying to do it was not planning on getting an inspection because it certainly would not have passed an inspection. I'm just saying. So anyway, good morning. Good morning. What's up, Keith? Good morning. Traveling on I-75. Keep your eyes on the road, my friend. Keep your eyes on the road. Appreciate you being here. What's up, David Bueno? Welcome, David. Glad to have you here. Let's see here. What do we got? Good morning, Robert. Glad to have you here. Battles. What's up? If you build it, Paul, we will come. I hear you. What's up, Red Dog? Red Dog did get your email. Darlene sent it to me. All of those things have nothing to do with your YouTube account. You have to go to Fast Tracks Tube and register for account. You have to go to fasttracksystem.com and register for an account and send us that information. That's the only way we can set up anything for you. It doesn't matter what your YouTube. We need to know what your usernames, what your account names are, what your actual username is on the platforms to get you all set up. And as far as the license plate, we're just not ready for that. I got to cut the jig, and I've been so busy. But we have to do that. But as far as that, everything else, it's all a matter of your information. With the Fast Tracks Tube thing, if you won that, remember you got to send us your email that you want to use, username that you want to use, password that you want to use. That's for the Trade Hog. So there's a bunch of little things you have to do. Just because we know your name on YouTube's doesn't help us with all these other platforms, because they have to all be registered on all of our platforms for us to set anything up for you. So we need to know what they are. We don't want to go searching through that. You have to share what your usernames are on each one of the platforms for us to get you set up. Stephen, good morning. Glad to have you here. Tara, good morning. All right. You're probably at the lake. I can't remember the name of that lake, but you're at it. Let's see. Adam, watching these shows, you have helped me understand the code so much better in the last 25 years. Well, that's great, Adam. I appreciate that. And hopefully, even you're coming here just to get your day started. Joe Wheeler Lake. Is that right, Tara? It's Joe Wheeler Lake, isn't it? Just to get your day started in Electricians. Just having a conversation. There's no other show out there just for electricians, right? I mean, get it's really y'all's show. Whatever you want to talk about, what topics you send at paulabernathy.com that you want me to talk about, it just gets you started in the morning. I don't know anything else that does that. Adam loves Fast Tracks Tube. It is, I'm not tooting my own horn on this. I think that the designers that built that for us, it is always a new feature I'm finding over there. My favorite feature today is probably the blackout feature. So when you're watching a video, you're chilling in bed or something, you click the little light bulb and everything else around it goes dark except for your screen. Turn your phone to the side. Nobody else has that. YouTube doesn't have that. That's probably my favorite feature lately, because I'm sitting in the dark. I don't want all this other crap. I just want the screen. So it's pretty cool. Let's see here. Good morning, Petey. Glad to have you here. Poppy's in the house for the win. Showing that pride. There you go. What's Adrian? Welcome, Adrian. There you go, Terry. Yep, I knew it was Joe Wheeler Lake. There you go. It had to hit me. I'm not through one cup of coffee yet, so I'm a little slow. Not the sharpest tool in the toolbox, but anyway. All right, guys. What we're going to talk about. What is it? Rob says, I guess my parents have been lucky, and the 5 of us boys have helped and done home improvements on their home as long as we could swing a hammer. You know what, Rob? In the same here. Growing up, my mom's house, Todd and myself fixed everything in that house. You know what I'm saying? Todd put a new roof on. I put new electric service in, fixed all the electrical up. We put a sump pump in. Todd redid the bathroom. Todd redid the kitchen. My brother is a jack of all. If y'all haven't heard me talk about it before, my brother can literally, I'm not just saying this. Dude, I'd love to brag on anybody, but my brother can freaking do, he's one of those guys. You know what I'm saying? There's always that one guy. I mean, I can do a little of this. I can do a little of that. There's always that one guy we all know that literally can freaking do anything and do it at a great, you know what I'm saying? And, it's just one of those things. And my brother is one of those guys. Now, I will say when it comes to code, he knows how to phone a friend, right? And I did look at a house that he wired yesterday on our little visit. This had to be a 10,000 square foot house, because I told you my brother, and we only used to do big homes, and he continues that. And that's all he does is the big stuff. He does service calls and, all this kind of stuff. And, he'll help up people because he loves to help the community and fix things for people. But when it comes to projects, he does big homes, and that's his main thing. And when I looked at the home yesterday, it reminded me of back when I was doing big homes. It's just a lot of work. And people say, oh, residential's easy. It ain't. because you have to please the customer. And if you got customers paying you 50, 60, 70, $80,000 in electric for the electric work, they want it right. And there's all the little recesses and the under cabinet lights and the my brother put in the door jamb switches for all of the closets, and these closets are as big as most people's bedrooms, y'all know. And a carpenter didn't want to cut them in. Guess who cut them in? The door jamb. And these are expensive ass door jambs because this house is, a couple $1,000,000. My brother did it and did it. And I would have been like, shoot, you better let that carpenter cut that damn thing in. I'll get you the wire there, but he better come. That's the difference. Okay. And many of you are probably out there are like that. But my brother he's just an amazing guy. Both my brothers are. Y'all know that. If y'all don't know that, I got two brothers. One that's older. Both are older than me. Todd is the electrician brother that helped inspire me into this industry. And he is my brother a CMECP? No, he is not. There you go. Interesting trivia. He would qualify as a CMECP or to sit for it, but he is not. Kind of like Jehovah Witness. Which I'm not. I don't push anything down anybody's throat, and he is not a CMECP. One is for him. I'll give you a real reason why he's not. Is because I tell you all the time that CMECP is for marketing, promotion. It's for business oriented. It's to drive and he works for himself. He's a one man show. He doesn't want any more work. He doesn't want to grow his business. He's at that winding down where he's ready to retire. He's not big into the code. I'm his brother. I've always answered every code question he's ever had. He knows code, but he's not big into it. So at the end of the day, again, I tell people all the time, CMECP is not for everybody. It is not. It all depends on the mission that you want, how you want to use it, how you want to promote it, how you want to present it. And he is so low key of a guy. I mean, literally, you walk into a room, you wouldn't know he was in the room. He just, me, you can smell me out before you get into the room. I'm loud, obnoxious. I'm always wearing something that's gonna catch attention or toot your own horn, wearing the hats or the CMEC or the shirts. Todd is very, but I will tell you what my brother has learned through the years. Every time I've ever gone to a job with him, he's always had the company shirt on, the AA Electric, looked the part and sent the message. Okay. Not the neatest guy in the world. I ain't going to lie. We got to work on that, Todd. If you're watching, we got to work on the neatness part. But, he does a good job. But he would never be able to utilize it because, again, he's so close to stopping. And he only does work for certain builder that does big homes. So he can do 2 homes, 3 of these multi-million-dollar homes a year, and he's happy. That was a problem when we worked together early on. I wanted to grow the business big. Todd was very happy with a mom and pop scenario. Okay. Me, I wasn't. I wanted to grow, get trucks, get guys, boom, boom, boom. So again, different usage. So he would not have a use probably for the CMECP, and he's not one of those code guys. He's got a brother that's right, 30 minutes from him that can answer any question. So I was not to answer your question, but no, he's not a CMECP. Maybe one day he'll say, Paul, I want to be a CMECP. Oh, maybe. Your brother has a great job. Also, customer care is very important in the industry. Yes, absolutely. Taking care of his customer. He literally does that way better than me. I will say he does that to a T. Okay, let's go on and look real quick and talk about the topic of today. Let's talk about AC cable because I said would I be done in an hour? Obviously not with my damn rambling. It's literally impossible. But all right. So what we're talking about today is Article 320, right? And what I don't like on my screen is that I am unable to show you all of what I'm looking at. So bear with me for a second. I'm going to see if I can't adjust this any. Hold on here. Hold on for a second. Hold on for a second, folks. I'm doing this on the fly. We're doing it live. F it. We're doing it live. Y'all remember Bill O'Reilly? He was hilarious. All right, folks. Hold on for a second. Bear with me. I'm just so unready for today. All right. Bear with me. It just drives me crazy when y'all can't see the whole thing. Bear with me, guys. I'm so tired today. All right. I don't know what's going on. It does not want to let me show you guys the whole screen. It just does not want to let me do it. All right, hold on. God dang it. So much for finishing today on time. You know what I'm saying? All right. Anyway, at least this screen. No spin zone, Bill O'Reilly. Love me some Bill O'Reilly. Um, Not always politically correct and sometimes gets in trouble, but who doesn't, right? Who doesn't get in trouble? All right, our Article 320, the scope of Article 320, this covers the use, that's part one, installation, part two, construction, part three. For armored cables, type AC cables, y'all all know the big difference between AC and MC cable is an armored cable, it's limited in size. It's UL4, okay? The conductors are limited up to 1 gauge. Right? It limits the number of conductors you can actually have. I think it's 4 with 1 equipment ground. Might be wrong with that, but we can look and see. But it's under UL4. It is an MC cable is UL 1569. The big key difference between regular MC cable, which people confuse and call it armored cable, but it's metal clad cable. The biggest difference between MC cable and AC cable, the biggest difference right up front is that AC cable, which again seems to be declining in popularity, but I'm not sure why, because it is the original smart cable. Because the armor can be used as an equipment grounding conductor. 250.118 says that I can use that armor, and then inside of the AC cable, you're not going to have an equipment ground, right? So that means as long as I use fittings that are rated for AC cable, connected to metal boxes, everything's bonded, everything's good. I got an effective ground fault current path back. Whereas you can't do that with MC, right? With MC, that armor cannot be used as an equipment ground unless you step up into a smart product, which then puts an aluminum conductor running through it that makes intimate contact with all the armor or the metal. Then you have a smart product, right? But the typical off the shelf AC cable, I don't know why when you're dealing with 20 amp circuits and 15 amp circuits and traditional, I don't know why more people don't use AC cable. And I see in a lot of projects where they're using MC cable, the smart ground products, which again, as a manufacturer, I love selling you the smart products, but you're going to pay more. So if you were doing 20 amp circuits and 15 amp circuits and in projects where you would use the MC, I would use AC because then you can save on the equipment ground because you can use the actual armor as the equipment ground. But at the end of the day, I think this is more spec driven because the vast majority of specifications that I see say MC and they make no mention of AC. So what that means is if it's not in the spec, people can't use it or they have to put in a submittal as an equivalent. And I think people just don't understand it. I really don't. And then, of course, I see the words that people use, the terminologies BX a lot. Just as a heads up, there is no BX out there today. Right? That stopped being made many years ago. Okay, they got stopped decades ago. And by the way, the old BX that you used to see out there, you can tell it because one, it has paper in it. Okay. And second, it's usually a really gray, dark gray armor. And that tells you that armor was never intended to be used as an equipment grounding conductor. But home inspectors, will go and see it, and flippers will go and put a little jumper on it or whatever. And if it's close to the panel, it may act as an equipment ground. But the further away it gets, it will not. I've actually been on calls where the old BX, which is not AC cable, which is not MC cable, it was an experimental product that was out there and it worked, and it was a General Electric product. And I've actually seen it where somebody improperly used the armor as an equipment ground. There's a fault onto it. Rather than clear the breaker because the impedance is so high because of the length, that it was actually causing the armor to arc across convolutions as current was running on it. And it was actually running through wood studs. And it had been doing this so long that around the holes that were going through the wood studs, it actually caused it to turn to charcoal. Now, in these old homes we used to build, they were really 2x10s or 2x12. I mean, it was really, the lumber was true dimension, and not anymore. Okay. The lumber is a fraction of what it is. Now we just do it, we call it 2x4 by name, but it ain't 2x4, that type of thing. So it looks like, I'm like, why didn't that burn down the house? Okay. So at the end of the day, AC cable is not BX. MC cable is not BX. BX, you could never use the armor ever as an equipment ground. It's never evaluated for it. It was prior to the need or our knowledge of needing equipment grounds to clear overcurrent devices. It's a very early product, right? Kind of, I put it along the lines of like a knob and tube, right? Um, the only difference is knob and tube, while it's unsafe, it made it hard because of the design to get between a circuit, the way it was wired. Not so much with AC, with the old BX, because you had the armor there. Still going to be bonded because it's in fittings, but it's sitting there waiting. And then again, the reason it wouldn't clear overcurrent devices because again, it was an effective ground fault current pad. It had way too much impedance in it. Then you take the spiral effect of the armor, and it also does what's called a choke effect, and it chokes it out. And so it won't clear an overcurrent device. That's why the old BX couldn't be used. Now, when AC came along, AC has that little strip that runs down or a little wire that runs down that makes intimate contact with all the convolutions, right? So people ask me, what do I do with that little wire in AC cable? And we're not talking the smart ground products where you take that larger, like a 10 gauge aluminum grounding slash bonding, you snip it off. When it comes to AC cable, you have two choices. That real little wire that runs through there, you have some choices. You can, typically 18 gauge or so, what you can do is you could bend it back and lay it in the convolutions, right? As long as it doesn't protrude past the highest peak of a convolution, it's not going to inhibit a connector. My best advice for everybody that is dealing with the old, I might get the sizes right. I can't remember. Somebody tell me. I can't remember an AC cable, whether it's a 16 gauge or 18 gauge bonding conductor that runs through there. But anyway, it doesn't matter because you cut it off. Don't wrap it back. And some people say, well, I use it to hold the red head in. Well, y'all know red heads, okay, are required for AC cable, okay? But there's the red heads are not required for MC cable. If you want to use them, go for it. But the fittings are designed to make it irrelevant. That's why there's a listing requirement. But you do have red heads. It's an older standard. You do have the red heads that are for use with AC cable, only AC cable. And a lot of people say I use the wire to hold the anti-short in. You don't really need that to do that. If you want to, that's fine. I just say keep it consistent, snip it off. Boom. Snip, snip, snip. Okay. Let's see here. Why don't they have an article BX? They have it for Nabitu because a BX again early on was denoted as like an armored cable. So it just kind of weeded itself out in the traditional UL4 came in and an AC cable was created. In fact, BX is closer, probably, it's obviously closer to a MC than it is an AC because the BX, because the armor in normal MC doesn't get used as an equipment ground. The only difference is with MC, we have to put an equipment ground in there, that type of thing. So, yeah. And also, since it's not made anymore, you can, there's still applications for knob and tube that are in the code for existing applications. So that's in there. BX was pretty much telling you treat it just like an armored cable. And so we really don't need a separate one for BX. Just treat it like an armored cable. But yeah, now you're not going to run any new, just like you're not going to run any knob. So it would, last thing I want is another article on all the different types of wiring methods that don't exist anymore. So yeah, so that probably the reason why we don't have one. Yusul says that's why TikTok models is not good for electricians that need longer explanations and stuff. Yeah, That's why I'm not a big fan of teaching on TikTok. Plus, it's just too whacked out for me. Too many people. It's too easy to have a keyboard warrior and click hate, and I just don't have the patience for it. People go out of their way to be hateful rather than to learn something. So I have a love hate relationship with social media. I think people are filled with too much hate. So it is what it is. All right, so listing requirements, obviously, AC cable and any associated fittings have to be listed. And you're going to find that on the connectors. It'll be a little mark on it, or it'll be on the box of the fittings you find. AC connectors do not work with MC. MC does not work with AC. However, they make connectors that are dual or triple rated. So they'll have the connector that is be AC slash MC slash MCI dash A, for example. MCI dash A when it comes to fittings. So an AC cable is an AC rating, requires an anti short bushing. MC cable, no anti short bushing, listed for MC, but it may also be used on AC if it has a dual rating. And then, of course, all of those smart products where you don't have to run an equipment ground because the armor is being used as the equipment ground in MC cable, metal clad, that needs a special fitting called an MCI-A. Now, think of the A as advanced or think of the A as armor if you need something to remind you. But most of the manufacturers that make the fittings today are probably going to do like we do with wire. We give you multiple ratings because we don't want it to sit on a shelf, right? So we're going to give you a product that can be used across a broad spectrum so that if you pick it, I can use it for AC, MC, MCI-A, but you got to make sure you look at the listing to verify that. Don't just assume that, right? Um, so it's a listed product. We make a crap load of it, but we make way more MC cable, obviously, in that product. Again, I tell people out there, if I was telling people how to save money on a project with all those terminations and they don't want to buy they're going to hate me over Prismium's going to hate me. I got to be careful, right? Because I'm a wiring cable guy, but I'm also a real guy. I don't feed you bullshit. The price of AC cable costs more because it's supply and demand. Manufacturers make a crap load more MC cable than they do AC cable, right? So you're going to pay more for AC cable. But if you compare that, if you're running 12 gauge and things like that, if you compare that to the smart ground products where you don't have to have an equipment ground, if you compare the AC to that product, then you might be surprised that the AC may be cheaper and you get the benefits of having the armor be an equipment ground. Okay. So again, it's one of those things I tell people, look at what your product needs are and evaluate it. But again, there's so many specifications. I think somebody said in New York, they still run a lot of AC cable. Right? I think AC cable's great. I have no problem with AC cable. All right. So here's the uses permitted for AC cable. Where can it be used? All right. Well, first you'll notice it says nothing in here about service. And the reason for that is also inherent in the production of UL4 is that these conductors can't be larger than 1 gauge anyway. So typically they're not evaluated for service. They're not listed under 230 for service, but it makes it real clear right here that you're not going to use it for service applications. Feeder, and probably 9.5 times out of 10, it's a branch circuit application. Exposed and concealed. Put it in the wall, run it on the surface. But remember, it is not to be in locations where it's subject to physical damage. Okay, so in the walls. And again, subject to physical damage is not a defined term in the National Electrical Code, so that is subjective. But again, if it looks obvious that it could be damaged, it's one thing. But just running something out on the wall doesn't necessarily mean, and I employ the inspectors out there, that does not mean that it's subject to physical damage just because I run it on the wall. Think about the environment. Use a little common sense. We sometimes we lack that today, right? Anyway, it can be running cable trays. Again, this is a dry location product. And again, MC cable is a dry location product, and it has the options, and we talked about that yesterday. It has the options to be used in a wet or damp location. Well, you don't get that option with an AC cable, okay? And it's because the construction requires the paper jute inside of it and all that, so there's not an option for this, okay? So it's a dry location product only. Now, it can be embedded in plaster finish on brick and other masonry, just like MC was, but it can't be on that brick or masonry that's located in a wet or damp location. Obviously, for absorption purposes, the brick or the masonry, whatever absorbed and retained water, and then you're putting this product on top of it, that type of thing. Can't do that. But dry locations, have at it. Inside buildings, all that kind of stuff, have at it. Number 5 says to be run or fished in air voids of masonry block or tile walls where such walls are not exposed or subject to excessive moisture or dampness. So again, AC cable can be fished in these air voids. Okay. And maybe it's an after application where you're trying to go down and you have a void in those blocks, have the open void. You can fish it down or something like that. That's fine. As long as you're not doing it in a location that excessive moisture is available or dampness. Okay. So, any outside wall that's in contact with moisture or whatever, probably not going to do it. Inside walls, not going to be a problem. You know, I'm saying, what's up, Craig? Glad to have you here. Elijah, I see you in here. Don't think I forgot you. All right. And also, this is one of those things that this was added, and I don't know how beneficial this type of things, but it says information. It says this usage permitted is not an all-inclusive list. We don't say that as much as we probably should or assume in the NEC. That means that if you have an application that is not here, it may be okay, specifically depending on the application. And a lot of people reach out to the manufacturer to say, hey, I got this install. I got this app. Is this okay? Well, one of the things about it is unless it's going to be in the uses not permitted, which is going to be clear, this is not an all-inclusive list. Just because you have 5 locations here, this may not be all the locations to which this can be used. This is not an all-inclusive list. Okay. So if I have a location or I have an application that's not under the uses permitted, but it's not clearly restricted under the uses not permitted, then it is fair game. And it's a conversation that you can have with your AHJ because they may not understand that this is not an all-inclusive list. Okay. Uses not permitted. All right. So this, you're not going to see that little note under because these are strictly prohibited. Number 1, we're subject to physical damage. Again, we don't have a definition, and people say, why don't y'all put that in the code? Because we'd have to do physical damage, and then we'd have to do severe physical damage, and we haven't, just like objectionable current, I don't, it's in the eye of the beholder. It's subjective. It depends on where it's installed. For example, I could argue with somebody that if I run a cable down a wall, it depends on where it's at. You could argue it's subject to physical damage. But if I run it down the wall in the corner, tight in the corner, so anything that were to try to hit it is going to hit the walls before it gets it, then I have an argument that it's not really subject to physical damage because of where I ran it, how I routed it. So again, be careful what we ask for. We do not want the code to get definitions on certain things that are so restrictive that we don't have any flexibility. And that's why I hear people say all the time, they hate the code this, they hate the code that. Look, you don't have to agree with everything in the NEC, but you have to understand the perspective of why it's written a certain way, why there's certain language a certain way, why there's some stuff that may seem ambiguous. It's to give the AHJ and you, the installer, a little bit of flexibility to come to the meeting of the minds. Rather, if it is pure black and white on everything, then it really becomes really rigid and hard to comply with. There are certain things you have to. Securing, supporting, it is what it is, right? There's no brainer there. You do it. And if you don't do it and you fail an inspection, you're in the wrong because it says in black and white, you do this, you do that. But when it comes to things like physical damage and things like that, very subjective. And we have to have some of that leeway for the electrician and the installer to come to the meeting of the minds. You get what I'm saying? Okay. All right. So can't do it. Can't locate it where subject to physical damage. Damp and wet locations. Obviously, this product is not rated for that. And they do not make a PVC jacketed AC. If you ever asked that, that's an MC product. It says you can't do it in air voids of masonry block or walls where such walls are exposed subject to moisture. Of course, this pretty much tells you that you can run it in the wall, and this reiterates that you can't where it's subject to moisture and damage. So it's kind of redundant, but you get the point. Next one, we're exposed to corrosive conditions. One, because it can't have any jacketing on it. And two, you're typically not going to have it in a location where you have any type of corrosive condition, maybe in a pool room, maybe in a chemical treatment plant, all these. You're not going to do that type of thing, right? Now, one of the big reasons for that, okay, is, and you've probably figured it out, is that we're using the armor as the effective ground fault current path. So if you take this product, you put it in a corrosive environment and the armor breaks away, you're going to lose your effective ground fault current path. And with this product, we're not required to put a wire type equipment grounding conductor in there. So this makes sense, right? And you can't buy it in PVC jacketing. It's not part of UL4. You're going to shift over to an MC product if you want that flexibility and you want that type of cable assembly. So all these things kind of tie together. They make sense. But the reason that we're okay with it with an MC in a PVC jacketing is one, PVC is impervious. And then two, we're required to have an equipment ground in there. Okay. Number 5, embedded in plaster finish on brick or the masonry in depth. Obviously, up here, you get allowed to put it in plaster, and then it says except as these. Well, down here, it just is redundant. It says, oh, by the way, what's up, Bill? We got another CMECP in the house. Welcome, Bill.
Woo, 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 woo.
And
big dog.
So let's see here. I'm going to lose my TikTok, folks, so bear with me a second. So over here, it's just reminding you again, oh, by the way, if it's a wet or damp location and you got embedded plaster, don't do it. Why? Because plaster will absorb the moisture and keep moisture around the cable assembly. Okay. Exposed work, 320.15. Exposed work. Exposed runs of cable, except as provided in 300.11b. Again, that would be above suspended ceilings and all that kind of stuff where you're going to go from box to light or luminaire or whatever. It says, other than that, it shall closely follow the surface of the building, finish, or on running boards. Very much the same language you folks saw in MC cable. Very much the same language you're going to see in like a non-metallic sheet cable product. It says exposed runs shall be permitted to be installed on the underside of joists where supported at each joist. Okay, so I can go down under, let's say in a crawl space, which by the way, yesterday, y'all know I consider crawl spaces dry locations as a blanket statement, even if they have dirt floor. Because I believe that if you look up and you see everything in there is basically rated for dry location, the woods are not treated wood, it's regular lumber, it has insulation. Who would put insulation up there in a wet location to cause it to get moisture in it? If I look at it, I'm like, it doesn't matter if it had vents on it to allow air exchange. That's just, to me, going to make it even better at a dry location. I don't worry about humidity. I don't get into that crap. That's your local AHJ can make the final call on that. But when I look in it and I see something like this, and I'm thinking, okay, if I want to go down and I'm running AC, for example, across floor joists, then I want to remember that I can do that. Okay. Now remember, non-metallic sheet cable, you're limited to what can be run on the bottom of a floor joist. When it comes to the AC, it's not limiting that in size, but it's making you secure it every joist. So you're going to put a staple in or strap in or whatever, every freaking joist. Okay. So, I mean, it's not a big deal, but it seems to me that that's more, maybe it's cheap. Maybe it's less labor than drilling all the holes, but it's your choice. Okay. And it has to be located where it's not subject to physical damage. Again, that's the general rule. Ken, even though it's typically steel armor, just like with MC cable, it all has to meet its own crush and impact tests. It is not rated, even though it does have this armor, it is not rated for physical damage. Okay. And obviously will not be rated for severe physical damage. Okay. And another thing I will point out right here, you see where this says right here, use is permitted. And you notice where it says, and somebody will ask me this, so this is why I always like to add these little tidbits. That's why it's great to join the live shows. It's not an all-inclusive list because you don't see anywhere in here where it says it's permitted to run it in a raceway. Right? That's the first one of the calls I get all the time, whereas you see that on MC. That's why that note is there to remind you. Can I run ACK? Well, some inspector will say, well, it doesn't say that it's okay to run it in a raceway. It is okay to run it in a raceway. It's not prohibited. And this is not an all-inclusive list. So this is, I mean, you'd be surprised the number of calls I get for stuff like that. Like, well, it doesn't say that you can run it in a raceway. Well, it says that in MC cable, but it doesn't say that for AC cable. So I'm going to assume it doesn't allow it. Well, you've heard the old school folks go, if it doesn't prohibit it, then it's permitted, and that type of thing. So that's a good example of, can I sleeve it for physical protection in a raceway? Absolutely, you can. Not a problem. But it doesn't say raceway here. But that's why you have an informational note like that. Okay. So that gives you a little bit more insight of what it means to say that this is not an all inclusive list. Okay. And it certainly doesn't prohibit it. Down here in the use is not permitted, doesn't prohibit it. Also, remember though, you can't run it in a raceway in a wet location, because the raceway's interior, I think it's 300.9, becomes a wet location, right? So at the end of the day, it's still a dry location product. So still can't, you can run it in a raceway, just can't run it in a raceway in a wet or damp location. Should make sense, right? Same as MC through framing members. So through or parallel to framing members, the rules, and we saw this yesterday with the MC cable, through board holes, in parallel with framing members, and all that kind of stuff, you still have the issue with AC, not from metal framing. You don't have to have plates and all this stuff when it runs through metal studs, but board holes and wood studs, parallel with the framing, all those type of things. This is just to serve a reminder that, look, you might be running AC cable just like you ran MC cable, but you got to stop and go look at 300.4 A, C, and D, because if you're running parallel or running through wood members, now remember, the one thing about with the metal studs is that if you're drilling through it in the metal studs, it's typically loose and it can deflect, right? When it comes to wood studs and you're driving something through, usually when you drill a hole or whatever, you've got the little splinters or whatever, and it could hold the MC or the AC in place. And then somebody could drive a screw through it and it doesn't have the ability to deflect because something of a rough drill hole, bored hole, may not allow it to flex. Well, with the metal studs, it can move. Okay. So traditionally, we're not a problem with that. Also, do not require grommets on MC or AC cable. NM cable, you would through metal studs, but not required for MC AC cable. You want to do it? That's fine. Thomas says, yeah, common sense must be difficult to come by. It is. It is becoming a rare thing today to have any common sense. I should create a course for inspectors and travel around the country. Everybody, everything, you think that would be popular if I did a something and I went around the country to all the inspection association called The Art of Common Sense for Inspectors? You think they would listen to me? Probably not. All right. And kind of give them some insight on how you look at a situation, that type of thing. No, too much, too much chest pounding in some cases. Anyway. All right. So accessible attics, y'all saw here. Not only does MC cable direct you here, but non-metallic sheet cable directs you here, because this information is germane to those as well when it comes to accessible attic applications. Okay, scuttle holes or pull down steps or permanent access to attics and all this type of stuff, right? So if you look at this, it says AC cable in accessible attics or roof spaces, right, shall be installed as specified 320.23a and b. Now, again, the power of and, right? And I think so many people underestimate the power of and. It means that if this is required, or this meets whatever you're doing, you follow it, and you follow this. If it had been or, and remember that's a little tip when navigating code. Or, and. If it says or, you do this, or you do that. If it says and, then you have to be aware as the electrician that I got to do this and I got to do that. If they're both germane, I've got to do them both. Now, we always call that the power of and or. And so this says and A or B if they're applicable. Well, here's the first one. Cables run across the top of framing members. Okay. Now, again, we're talking attic spaces, right? Above attic. Okay. The area between the top floor and the roof, all that open space. Okay. It says we're run across the top of framing members. I mean, who wants to drill the holes? In the top in the joists, the ceiling joists. Who wants to do that crap? So I'm running it along the top, right? And it says if it run across the top of framing members or across the face of rafters and studding. Okay, you see that's in shaded out. So obviously, evolved. We all know that's what remember I talked about that umbrella? When you come up to a scuttle hole, it's umbrella. You know, you're looking at it going, okay, 6 feet out, 6 feet in all directions. Then I'm looking for any type of cable that could be damaged, and I got to do something extra. If it's a permanent stairs, and I look up and I go, 7 feet out in all directions, that type of thing. So anyway, it says where it says where run across the top of framing members or across the face or rafters of studding within 7 feet. Okay, so this is your general rule: 7 feet of the top, 7 feet of the floor or horizontal surface. It says the cable shall be protected by guard strips that are at least as high as a cable. So if I'm running them on the top of the joists, then I'm going to just put 2x4s sandwich on each end of it so that when somebody steps up there, they're not going to step on the cable. Those are your guard strips. You can use whatever you want, whatever gets it so that it is higher than the cable assembly, right? So at least it has to be at least as high. So when stepping on it, the probability of stepping on the cable and damaging it is reduced to none, okay, in this space, okay? Now, here's your reduction that's built into the language right here. It says, now, where the space is not accessible by permanent installed stairs or ladders, protection shall only be required within 6 feet of the nearby edge of the scuttle hole or attic entrance. Now, they don't have a picture of this, but y'all know what I'm talking about, scuttle. So you have to use portable steps. Now, we're not talking about pull down steps. That's permanent, okay? We're talking about just a scuttle hole where you pull a temporary ladder up and you have to poke the little thing open. The probability of you doing a bunch of storage up there is probably nil. Okay. I've got 2 of those in my house. There is absolutely nothing in my attics. Okay. I'm just not going to put crap up there. Okay. So when I see scuttle holes, I'm thinking the ceiling wasn't made to support any weight anyway. And yes, you can put some Christmas stuff up there, stuff like that. But what I saw in the past is more than when you have just a plain little scuttle hole. I would see, especially in Texas, there's a lot of movement. People would store stuff up there. They would still keep storing stuff up there. It is a portable ladder, but they get their husband to put stuff up there. And then you get more what's called sheetrock pops around it because they're putting extra weight on there. And as the home flexes a little bit, it starts popping the sheetrock, that type of thing. Maybe it was just my experience in that. I just don't do it. But anyway, that's just a thing. So putting cable up there, AC cable, MC cable, NM cable, just remember it is 7 foot in all directions if it's permanent access. If it's a scuttle hole where you're going to just pull a ladder up to it and do it, then it's 6 feet in all directions. It has to be protected. Okay. So that means you have to put running strips up there so that they are next to the cable so that it's high enough that you can't, if you get up there for some reason, you can't step onto the actual cable assembly. Makes sense? What's up, Marlon? Good morning. Hey, Charlie. It says, Paul, you're the best. Oh, I appreciate you. I have no idea how you do this every day. I had to take a month off or so after screwing up a simple motor control on a practice exam. I'm back. Yeah. I talk to Angry all the time. Angry Sparky is funny. He works at a place where the people that he work with suck. They are just awful. And he tries to educate them and they just won't listen. They're just he gets so frustrated and I feel sorry for him sometimes. He gets so frustrated that and I'm like, sometimes you got to know when to just say, that type of thing. But when it comes to code, you got to keep at it, take a break, come back, take a break, come back. And but motor controls are not easy. Okay. So we welcome you, always welcome you back, Charlie. And while you're back, Charlie, I will send a shout out to you and let you know you did win something last quarter. And I have not gotten your information at the email address. Let's see, real quick while I got you, Charlie, as well as you, Marlon, but I think you sent something in. Let's see, Charlie, you won the NFC card, Charlie. You got us, email us at winner, WINNER at fasttracksystem.com and send us your mailing address so we can get you that NFC card out to you. So I think you did win that. So just a shout out to you, remind you to send that in. And I was trying to see if you want anything else. No. Okay. So, all right. Sorry about that. All right. Let's get back to the NEC. You got to forgive me, guys. I end up on a tangent and I'm already over an hour. Didn't I say that I wouldn't make an hour? That it was going to be less than an hour? And I already lied already. I'm a liar. All right. So that was A. That's across the top of framing members. And then you got B, cables that are installed parallel to framing members. We're still in the attic, right? Yeah, I think you sent in, Marlon. I think you sent to winner at, I think you won. Yeah, you won, Marlon. You won an ultimate coin, and I'm still waiting for your mailing address on that. You won a voltage drop card. Still waiting for your mailing address for that. And you got to send it to winner. I have people out there watching. You're sending it to paulabernathy.com using the portal that Let's Ask Paul. No, I need you to send your emails to winner, WINNER, at fasttracksystem.com. That's where I need the email to go. That's part of the rules. Marlon Lewis, you won a voltage drop card as well. You also got the 2023 enhanced program, Marlon. So I need to know what your username and everything is over on fasttracksystem.com so I can put that enhanced program in your actual profile. Same with you, Red Dog. You were on a course as well. But I can't put it in there until you tell me what your profile is on the website, that type of thing. Okay. I think, Marlon, I think that was it. Okay. All right. All right, where was I? All right, so now we're still in the attic, but now maybe we want to run, instead of running across the top of the framing members, or maybe it turns and runs to run parallel with the framing members, and that would be rafters too, or framing members, which would be the ceiling of the floor below, but it would be the floor of the attic. I want to run parallel. Well, that's okay. It says where cable is installed parallel with the sides of the rafters, the studs, the ceiling or floor joists, neither guard strips nor running boards shall be required. You don't need the running boards, but you have to install it down, and it makes reference to 300.4. And that means that it has to be what? Same rules for paralleling means it has to be 1.25 inches away from the edge. So the cable has to be 1.25 inches away from the edge of the framing member. Okay, so it's down. So there is no reason to step on it. You won't hit it. It's nicely in there. Probably going to be in the insulation anyway. So you don't have to worry about if somebody's stepping up there looking for something. They're not going to step on the cable. Okay, so I get it. There are some areas. Now, what's interesting about this is that when you get outside of that 6 feet or outside of that 7 feet in the attic, then you can run it across the top. Okay, remember this rule right here for running across the top. This only applies to that 7 foot and 6 foot range, not running it elsewhere in the attic where, you know, it's further away from that access point. Okay. All right. Next, bending radius. Again, we talked about this extensively with MC cable. You have bending rules. MC cable shall be made such that the cable is not damaged. If you pop out the backside of this interlock AC, we're going to know it's damaged. There is no marketable repair kit on the market for fixing MC or AC cable, but you do you, boo. But at the end of the day, there is nothing out there. So, you know, be aware of that. So be careful how you bend it. It says the radius of the curve on the inner edge of the bend shall not be less than. Now this one is 5 times, whereas MC was 7. This is 5 times the diameter of the AC cable. Okay, so you go to the manufacturer, you find out what the diameter is, and you all know, again, no lesson here that I need to do when it comes to circle, right? Circumference, diameter, center out is the radius. Okay, always remember circumference, diameter, center radius. Okay, so measure it out. Okay, lock those things in your mind. You're going to be sleeping at night and you're going to wake up and you're going to go, what did Paul say? Circumference, diameter, and radius. Circumference, diameter, and radius. Or maybe you won't do that. Maybe that's just me that wakes up in the night doing that shit. All right, so there you go. All right, the next is securing and supporting. Again, remind everybody, dot 30. One of those little ones to remember when it comes to wiring methods, non-metallic sheath cable, MC cable, all that. Dot 30, securing and supporting. So when it comes to AC cable, it says type AC cable shall be supported and secured by staples, cable ties listed and identified for securement. I don't, and support, I don't know any that are not, unless they're coming from China or something and whatever. I don't know. I would assume they are. They are fasteners and securements and things like that. Straps, hangers, or similar fittings, similar to these type of things, or other approved means designed and installed so as not to damage the cable. So we had somebody mention yesterday about using tie wire. As an AHJ, I have zero problem with the use of a tie wire at all. Not like a tie wrap, but a tie wire. The roll of wire you get and make it and tie it. I have no problem with that. The only problem is if you tighten it too tight and it causes damage to the armor. But you remember, it's just like driving staples. Y'all remember that episode where I talk about apprentices? I teach my apprentices first day one. I teach them how to drive a staple. I teach them the importance of it. Why driving a staple too far can be a problem. And I go through those different things, how to nail up a box. I give them the anatomy of the install, I call it. And they learn from that. And I keep reminding them of that. So they know that a staple is not designed to lock a cable. It's just designed to keep it in the middle of the framing member. Okay. It's not like it's going to fall out the freaking wall, right? So yeah. So it's all how you teach your apprentices and how you do it. So yeah. All right. Also, you see right here where it says AC cable shall be permitted as a means of support. You see that's kind of tanned out. That's the same as it was for MC, making it very important statement that if you have an unsupported length to luminaires, and we're going to see if we have that allowance here, that small P is considered supported to meet the rule at the box through the fitting. Okay. The fitting will do that. And then you can have the span that goes out to the piece of equipment. Okay. Kind of like a whip, if you will. All right. All right. Now, so that's your general requirement. You have to be secured and supported. Now you get into the rules, the distances, all this kind of stuff. So unless otherwise permitted, right? And that would be an example in down here, unsupported cables. So it says unless otherwise permitted, which means it's somewhere else in the code. It may say, we'll give you a little break. Here's what it says. It says, unless otherwise permitted, type AC cables shall be secured. This is not a permissive thing. This is a mandatory statement. Shall be secured within 12 inches of every outlet box, junction box, cabinet, or fitting, and at intervals not exceeding 4.5 feet. Okay. So we're securing it within 12 inches. Can it be at 6 inches? Absolutely. 8 inches? Absolutely. 2 inches? Absolutely. 12 inches? Absolutely. Within 12 means 12 or less. Okay. And then every 4.5 feet. Now, remember, AC cable is going to be secured. In this case, every 4.5 feet. That's the same as non-metallic sheath cable. Non-metallic sheath cable 334.30 is going to say secure it every 4.5 feet. So it's easy to remember these two, right? AC cable and non-metallic secured at 4.5 feet. Also, when it comes to AC cable, you secure it within 12 inches. That's exactly the same for non-metallic sheath cable, except when you don't have a connector at a box and you have in a 4 by 2.25 box, like a nail up, and you don't have a cable clamp built into the box, then you're going to have to do it within 8 inches. Okay. But if you have a clamp, you can go up to 12 inches. So that's the only subtle difference. Not the case with AC because you always have to have a clamp. Okay. All right. Unless it's built into the box. And if it's built into the box, it's still a clamp. It's just built into the box. Now, supporting. Unless otherwise permitted, again, that you have an unsupported allowance that we haven't gotten to. But so that's the otherwise permitted. It says type AC cable shall be supported at intervals not exceeding 4.5 feet. Okay. So securing it every 4.5 feet is also going to meet the supporting requirement. Not a problem. It does state that horizontal runs of type AC cable installed in wood or metal framing members or similar supporting means shall be considered supported and secured where such supports does not exceed 4.5 feet. So as long as the spacing of your framing or the wood joists that you're going through or the metal framing you're going through or the metal studs you're going through, as long as the span, and they're typically not going to be that far apart. Typically joist spans, they might be 18 inches, might be 24 inches, might be 16 inches. Studs, this is also horizontal through framing members like studs. Then it's considered secured and supported. It means you don't have to do it. That's why we run things through framing members like non-metallic, MC, whatever, and we're not trying to worry about securing and supporting as it runs through those framing members. It's considered secure. It ain't going nowhere, okay? I did have an inspector one time want to argue with me that they need to figure out a way to secure it every 4.5 feet as it runs through the framing members, and I was like, did you not read this? Is that not running horizontal? Did you read this? Now, the one thing to remember, folks, is the moment that you turn, that's horizontal. The moment you turn vertical out of the framing member, up or down, it doesn't matter. The moment that you turn vertical or either way, then these requirements kick in from the point where it comes in and starts to go vertical. You still have your 4.5 feet requirement that you have to secure it and support it. In this case, the 4.5 feet does both. Okay. Now you have unsupported cable, okay, just like we had with MC cable. And you're going to see it's very similar. It says AC cable shall be permitted to be unsupported and unsecured. Whippy, if you will. Whippy, whippy, whippy. Where the cable complies with any of the following. Doesn't have to comply with all these, but any of these. All right. Number one, fished in access points through concealed spaces in finished buildings. Not the oops, I forgot to do it in a building that's under construction. This is for you guys that are going out there and you're adding something to a building that's finished. We say finished means, to me, it means CO. It may be different to your AHJ. To me, the building's finished. And oops, I want to add something. Okay. Then I can come in, and if I have the ability to fish it between two access points, two junction boxes or whatnot, then I can do it. And that's okay. Okay. Or if it's impractical, like we said, it says, look, it's got a piece of equipment's been put in. You can't get to it. It's not safe for an electrician to be working there, but I can fish something and get from point A to point B without having to try to move a big piece of equipment. It's just not practical to do it, but I need to get that circuit in there. I need to fish it. Then that is where you would use this, and you would argue with the inspector and say, look, it's impractical. We're not going to bring somebody back to move a 2-ton piece of equipment when I can just fish here and get here. That's the kind of concept. That's the kind of thought process that inspectors, I wish I could go around the country and have a training session. I'm not going to say I was the best electrical inspector in the world, but I believe that I trained my inspectors well, and I instilled in them the ability to use common sense, trade knowledge, and come together to make a practical installation that was not only safe, met the intent of the code, but also thought about the customer. Because you know what? All of us out there that were inspectors are stewards of our community. So we're not here to get a chip on our shoulder and make life difficult for somebody. Okay. We're just here trying to make compliance, but we understand that not everything is a perfect world. And so, it's someday when I get older, maybe somebody will say, "Hey, Paul, maybe Klein Tool or EC&M Magazine will say, "Hey, Paul, you old fart, we want to send you around the country and train and go to jurisdictions and train inspectors and things like that." Boy, that'd be cool, wouldn't it? I ain't never gonna happen. Those folks don't like working with me. Klein, Eaton, all those major manufacturers don't like working with me anymore because I don't, I'm kind of one of those guys that's not going to hide the BS. If I don't like something, I'll say it. They don't like that. Okay. Public punching bag. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly right. All right. So the next thing is, okay, so we can fish it. Next it says, all right, it is not more than 2 feet in length at terminals where flexibility is necessary. So if you have from a junction box to a piece of equipment and you need some flexibility, okay, I can go from the box. Remember that connector is considered the support. I can go up to 2 feet to the equipment if I need some flexibility. Okay. And then it says here is not more than 6 feet in length from the last point of support to the point of connection to luminaire. So this is exactly the same as the MC cable allowance. Okay. It still has to be in an accessible ceiling, though. So above a suspended, above a drop ceiling, that type of thing. All right. Boxes and fittings. $320. Okay. Here's an important one, folks. So everybody out there who says that MC cable requires an anti-short bushing but can't find a code reference for it, then they come over here to 320 and we tell them, they're like, okay, well, without going into the story about the listing of the fittings and make it not required because of the way fittings for MC cable are listed, all I got to tell people most of the time is just go read 320.40. And you'll notice that is not, it used to be years ago, but it never made the statement about anti-short bushings. But here I say, go read 340 and then go back over and look for .40 in 330 and see if it says the same language. See if you see that language. Because here it is. It says, at all points where the armor of the AC cable terminates in a fitting shall be provided to protect wires from abrasion unless the design of the outlet box or the fitting. Okay, you can get the fittings that make it irrelevant to do this. Okay, That would be like abrasion fittings with the axis. There's a difference between the anti-short, you're going to see this in a minute, and a fitting that has a red insert in the end, right? That's for abrasion. That is not the same as an anti-short bushing. Okay, big difference. That might be an insulated throat. Okay, with MC cable, it makes it irrelevant, even though they do sell some with that because it's a dual rated fitting. It probably can cover AC, MC, everything. But reality is, MC fittings are designed differently than an AC fitting is designed. Now, today they're probably very similar in design, but the code is the way it is. Okay, so either the box will design it this way, or the fitting that you use will design it this way for abrasion. Okay, that's the abrasion thing. Okay, or it says or fitting is such that it affords equivalent protection. And now, listen to this, folks. And remember that power of and didn't say or. And this is so important today. If you learned anything today, take away understanding how to read the code better when you're breaking things down. And because sometimes code like this is hard to read because there's actually multiple rules embedded in the paragraph. And somebody could submit a public input, for example, to break this out to make it easier to understand. We do this all the time. Mike Holt does that a lot. He likes to submit those ones that break things out, but nobody submitted it for this. Okay. And so, for example, that's the general rule. Then it says, and in addition, an insulating bushing, ding, 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 hello, redhead, or its equivalent protection shall be provided between the conductors and the armor. So it has to fit down between the armor and the conductors, where a insulated bushing does not do that. That's for abrasion. This says, and in addition, and again, they're not going to say red head, red hat, anti-short bushing. They're not going to say that, but that's what it is. It's an insulating bushing that goes down between the conductors and the armor. And it says it right there. You don't get that on MC. So if people want to use it on MC, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I ain't hating on that. Okay. But you're not required for MC, but it is specifically required here. And that is how it's also written in the UL standard. UL4 for AC cable mentions the use of these bushings. 330 and UL 1569 for MC cable does not mention anything about the bushing that goes between the armor and the conductors. It doesn't even make reference to it in 1569. Okay. So people that do it say it's extra precaution. That's fine. But realize the fittings for MC are made so it makes it irrelevant. But do you? I don't mind you doing it. It doesn't bother me. Now, the next question people say, well, why do the manufacturers send them if they're not required? I want to tell you, here you go. If you've never heard me say this before, I'll tell you. The reason that manufacturers send them, and I know this for a fact, because we used to send a whole bag, and I got them to cut that down to 25. Now I got that down, or 35, and now I got them to cut it down to 0 with MC. Hopefully not sending any anti-short bushings except for feeder stuff, just because people still don't understand the difference. The big thing to remember with these is that manufacturers that do supply these for MC cable, it's because we're pretty sure that most of people out there, even inspectors, don't know the rule. And so they assume that they're required. And they don't want to take the time to listen to somebody like me explain it. So it's easier just to give them a bag of it and let them use it if they want. It's up to them. Now, when it comes to AC cable, we're required by the UL standard to give you those. So if you go buy your AC cable at Supply House and you get it and they don't give you a little bag of redheads or the top hats or whatever you want to call them, then you need to ask for it because it gets shipped with every coil. Okay, every 250-foot coil requires a minimum of 35 anti-short bushings with it. So if they don't give it to you, maybe it fell off or fell off the reel, but you make sure you ask for it if it's AC cable, that type of thing. And if you get it with MC, it's just a bonus. Use it if you want. If you don't, you know. All right, anyway, so it goes on to say, the connector or clamp by which the AC cable is fastened to the box or cabinet shall be such design that the insulating bushing or its equivalent will be visible for inspection. So that's why you got those little holes that are typically in the AC connectors so that you can see the red through it or the color through it. It doesn't have to be red. It could be any other color you want. Most people do red. I think there's only one manufacturer that actually makes these little things anymore, because I know that we had a hard time finding them at Encore, and we use a massive amount because we make a lot of AC cable. And we used to give them with the MC cable just as a courtesy. We ran through a lot of these things, and they were hard to get, especially during COVID. It was hard to get these little things, and it's not like they're produced by a bunch of people. So anyway, but they got to be able to visually see it, okay, when it's dealing with AC cable. Now, it says where change is made from AC to other cable or raceway methods, a box fitting or conduit body shall be installed at junction points as required in 300.15. Okay. So changes, transitions, listed fittings for transition, all that kind of stuff required to be listed for the application, obviously for use in an AC cable. And if it's transitioning, for example, anytime you have a transition from one cable assembly to another or one wiring method to another, and you're using a proper transition fitting, the fitting is going to be rated for both types of wiring methods that it's for use with. Okay, so from EMT to MC, or from EMT to PVC, or whatever you're looking for. You're not trying to Frankenstein it and just take a bunch of rigid couplings and put some connectors in the end. No, you need a proper transition fitting. I get you. I get what people do. I get it. But the easiest way to transition could be just put a junction box in there. Okay, something like that. Or you could actually do a fitting with a conduit body, as long as that conduit body is allowed to be used, or the threading is allowed to be used with the different types of wiring methods you're working with, that type of thing. And I'm sure there's no picture, but there you go. There's a good old anti-short bushing. There you go. Okay. All right. Called a redhead by many people, yada, yada, yada. Okay. That type of thing. All right. Ampacities of AC cable. Right? Ampacities in accordance with 310.14. Obviously, it's subjected to adjustment and corrections like anything else, although we do have allowances for bundling, just like with MC cable that we have. For example, if you bundle them together and the metal clad bundle is together, then you do have some allowances, as long as you don't have over a certain number of conductors and things like that. You do have some allowances for AC cable, and that is under 310.15C1. We have some allowances for you to be able to do that and not have to do the adjustment for number of current carrying conductors due to bundling. But that is very unique to that. But when it comes to ampacity, it's pretty much the same concept as we get for everything, right? It says armor cables installed in are going to follow all the rules in 310.14. And of course, that's going to reference you to 310.15 for adjustment and corrective purposes. Just remember, you do have an allowance, okay, for MC and AC cable under 310.15C1. Now, that is for the number of current carrying conductors. We do not have the allowance for ambient temperature, okay? You still have to take into consideration ambient temperature, okay? There you go. There you go. Bad guy says they got some Dottie LB conduits, threaded entry, are only made for rigid. There you go. So would not be an adequate transition fitting. Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. All right, so thermal insulation now. Question everybody asks is, okay, what happens if I'm installing the AC cable in contact with thermal insulation? Okay, well, it says armor cables installed in thermal insulation shall, now, this is interesting versus, and I'm going to show you. Let's see here. Let me check real quick. Just to show you subtleness of code. Let me go real quick, look at 330. Hold on for a second. Oh, a good old link. It's probably logged me out. It does this a lot. I don't know if all of you ever had that experience with Link. Yep, sure did. Logged Paul out of the whole thing. Hold on, bear with me. Okay. So if I go back and look at 330 real quick, and I want to look at, hold on here real quick. I just want to look at, let's see here, ampacity. Okay. So if you look here at ampacity and thermal, here it says, so you see thermal insulation. It says we're more, see here it says more than 2 MC cables containing 2 or more current carrying conductors, each other are installed in contact with thermal insulation. You see how that reads? In contact with. Okay, just remember that for a second. Okay, and it's 2 or more in contact with. These are the subtle stuff, right? Subtle, yeah, the log outs, the pop-up error pop-ups, I love it. I'm not complaining. I love Link, but they leave some to be desired sometimes. All right, so see the subtlety. Now here's what it says here. Check this out. Now we do have the same stuff here, but just remember here it says armor cable installed in thermal insulation shall have conductors rated 90 degrees C, okay, which they all are, by the way. The ampacity of cables in these applications shall not exceed 60. So you can use the 90 for adjustment and corrective purposes, but the ampacity here says the ampacity of the cable installed in these applications not to exceed 60. So that is very similar to what? Non-metallic sheath cable. Very similar. Okay. It says the 90 is permitted to be used for ampacity adjustment corrections. We know that, just like non-metallic is. It says, however, the ampacity shall not exceed 60 degrees C. So ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to pick your conductor at the 60 degree, see if it handles a load. Then you're going to apply the adjustment and corrections to make sure that conductor can still handle the load and you're not exceeding the value of the 60 degree. Plus, you're trying to make sure that after adjustment and corrections, you haven't have a conductor now whose ampacity goes below the value that's in the 60 degree column and thus below the amps that you need for your installation. Does that make sense? That's the most complicated thing in the National Electrical Code, I feel, is adjustment and corrections and people understanding what a conductor. And doesn't matter whether we read posts about people doing air conditioners, HVAC, and not understanding that you can have a 50 amp overcurrent device on a 12 gauge because the nameplate says it, or they don't understand adjustment and corrections. They don't understand conductor ampacities. We have those YouTube videos or those Facebook videos where people say, what's the current carrying ability of a stranded versus copper? And then they start talking about skin effect when I know they know absolutely nothing about skin effect. We're not talking about 400 hertz. We're not talking about 120 hertz. We're not talking about where skin effect becomes a problem. We're talking 60 hertz. It's negligible. When I see two conductors, whether it's stranded or copper, even though Chapter 9, Table 8 will say that there's more resistance in one than the other, it's negligible when it comes to current carrying capacity because the National Electrical Code clearly tells us how many amps I can put on a conductor. Why does an electrician want to act like a scientist and care about that shit when the reality is we're electricians? I know that a 12 can carry this amount of amps based on the NEC. A 10 can carry this. A 6 can carry this. A 14 can carry this. Yet they will post crap that gets messed up, but at the end of the day, they don't understand the common principles of adjustment and correction in conductors and ampacity and how it works with insulation, terminal limitations, 110.14c. Spend more time learning that than these funky posts that you see on social media asking you these open-ended questions that are just stupid. Just scroll over that garbage. Nobody cares. It's garbage. No electrician needs to care. The current that a conductor can carry is based on the NEC. That's it. You know what I'm saying? All right. Sorry, off the soapbox. Ooh, I'm back down. All right, so now it goes. So that's basically very similar to non-metallic sheath cable. So it's not brain surgery for you folks. And you can also remember that, again, the securing and supporting is very similar to non-metallic. So you can, the 4.5 feet, same with non-metallic. So kind of helps you remember those. Now, here it says, where two or more AC cables containing two or more current carrying conductors, okay, in each cable are installed in contact with thermal insulation. Okay. See how that is, how it chimes and similar to the MC we looked at. Okay. Okay. That we're dealing with it. It's very similar. The wording's the same. It's not going to make it difficult to understand that when you're dealing with AC and MC, this type of thing is very similar. Same kind of concept with non-metallic sheath cable. It says where you have two or more AC cables containing current carrying conductors. Okay, there's two where there's more than two, so three or more AC cables containing two or more. And remember, a black and white is two current carrying conductors. Okay, establish that. Are installed in contact with thermal insulation, caulk, or sealing foam without maintaining spacing between cables. Okay, it says the ampacity of each conductor shall be adjusted in accordance with 310.15c1. Okay, all right, now what happens is this is directing you to 310.15c1. When you get to 310.15c1, you have rules there that go into more detail when it talks about maintaining spacing. It talks about where it's not maintaining spacing more than 24 inches. All this. You've got those rules you have to follow, right? Now, they don't really have this is really not a good commentary here for this one. But what I did think, and I can't, I'm trying to show. Let me see if I've got a picture here. Oh, bear with me. Might have it. I might. I don't know that that I have it. I don't think that I have it queued up. No, I don't have it queued up. Okay, we'll just talk about it. So we'll go look at it. So if I click here on 310.15c1, right, it talks about the adjustment and corrections, right? But you'll notice something. See this right here? It says the ampacity of each conductor shall be reduced as shown in table 310.15c1, where the number of current carrying conductors in a raceway or cable exceed 3, okay? Or where single conductors or multi-conductor cables not installed in a raceway, okay? So multi-conductor cables like an NM cable, tray cable, all those are multi-conductor cables and they're typically not installed in a raceway, are installed without maintaining spacing for a continuous length longer than 24 inches. So if it's 25 inches and you bundle them together, then you're going to have to do an adjustment, okay? That's what the general rule says, okay? So now, but where that kind of deviates is if you go down a little bit and you'll see right here, D, adjustments shall not apply to type AC cable or type MC cable under the following conditions. Number one, the cable does not have an overall jacket. Well, AC cable doesn't, so don't have to worry about that. The cable has not more than 3 current conductors. Because of the general limitation to AC cable anyway, the high probability of the cables with the AC that you're going to be working with are going to be 2 conductor and 3 conductor. And so again, they're not going to have more than 3 current conductors typically with the use of an AC cable. So you're okay there. They have to be 12 gauge. Okay. If they're 14 gauge or 10 gauge, this thing is you can't utilize it. Okay. And then lastly, it says not more than 20 current carrying conductors installed without maintaining spacing. So if you are bundling and you are bundling more than 24 inches and you say, damn, I don't want to reduce my ampacity because of the general rule, I want to use this allowance. So it's longer than 24 inches. Okay, well, as long as the cables have no jacket on it, as long as they're 12 gauge, as long as there's not more than 20 current carrying conductors in the bundle, okay? So you count 3 in this one, 3 in this one, 2 in this one, 2 in this one, whatever. As long as they're not more than 20 current carrying conductors, right? Without maintaining spacing, then you're sitting there going, okay, then I can ignore the adjustment and I get the full use of the ampacity of that conductor. Now, what if I have more than 20? Okay, well, there is an exception to number 4. Okay. And again, this applies to AC or MC cable, by the way. So in case I didn't talk about it when we did MC, same thing. It says exception to number 4. It doesn't get rid of these requirements. Okay. He doesn't get rid of these. It's just an exception to number 4, where you may have all of these same conditions, but now I've got what? Maybe I screwed up and I've got, instead of 20, I've got 21. Right? Then it says, okay, if the cable meets the requirements of 310.15c1 D1 through D3, that means it meets all of these first. It says, and it has more than 20 current carrying conductors are installed longer than 24 inches without maintaining spacing, are stacked or are supported on bridle rings, a 60% adjustment shall be applied. Well, I'm going to be honest with you, 60% down here, okay, that's even worse than these down here. So I'm going to be honest with you. It allows you to use a 60%. It may help you. It may not. Okay. But again, you're going to have a 60% reduction. Right. So you went from not having to do anything at all to a 60% adjustment factor. And that's going to lower the amount of current that conductor can carry. But it doesn't mean that you may have to throw out everything, because you know what? If you understand adjustment and corrections, you understand conductors, then the conductors that for the load that you're maybe designating, there's a high probability that maybe it can still handle the load. That's why it's so important to understand adjustment and corrections. Now, do I recommend bundling in any type of scenario? Absolutely not. But you do have to remember, you do have some allowances here when it comes to MC cable and AC cable for those type of applications. Okay. Easier to just tell you about it. And, as always, if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to explain it. Cable trays. Yes, you can run AC cable. It's a cable. You can run it in a cable tray. 392.10 lists AC cable. That's fine. It says AC cable installed in a cable tray shall be determined in accordance with 392.80. That's the cable tray article. And that's going to have instructions for ampacities and what you do by installing it in cable tray. Construction, we won't deal a bunch with. This is by the manufacturers, okay? So they got to take care of this. So this is really for them. AC cable shall be an armor or flexible metal tape and shall have an internal bonding strip of copper or aluminum in intimate contact with the armor for its entire length, okay? So here you typically see it right here. And there you go. Gives you some extra, and it's used as an equipment ground because it has that internal bonding strip. Okay. What do you do with it at the end when it comes to AC cable? You can wrap it back because its size is smaller than what you would get in a smart ground product with an MC. It's smaller. So when you wrap it back in the interstice or the groove, as long as it doesn't protrude past the highest point of the convolution, then it's not going to inhibit the connector. And if that's the case, it's okay. My recommendation is it's done its job, folks. Once it gets to the end of the cable, just snip the thing off. You don't bring it in the box. You don't terminate it anywhere. You do nothing with it. Its job is done. All it did was bond all those intimate convolutions. That's it. It's done. So people ask me all the time, what do you do with it? Cut it off. Be done with it. All right. Now, conductors. Insulated conductors shall be the type in 310.4.1. That's going to give you the different lists of different types of conductor insulation or identified for use in the cable. It says, in addition, the conductor shall have an overall moisture resistance and fire retardant fibrous covering. That's why you see AC cable with that paper wrap. It's a jute. Okay, UL4 dictates this, and it's also mandated here. And again, manufacturers take care of that. Type ACT, a moisture-resistant fibrous covering, shall be required only for the individual conductors, only on the individual conductor, not as an overall assembly wrap. Each individual conductor are wrapped, okay, when it comes to the ACT version, okay? Let's see, 320.108, equipment grounded conductor. AC cable shall provide an adequate path for fault current as required in 250.4A5 or B4 and to act as an equipment grounded conductor. It's also listed in 250.118 as well as an equipment grounded conductor. So that's a big difference between MC cable. Though remember, manufacturers like Prismium, Southwire, other manufacturers make an MC cable where you can use the armor as an equipment ground like AC, but it's not your normal MC. It's not what you'd buy off the shelf, your traditional MC. It's a smarter product. It's called a smart ground or MCAP. What do you do with that larger aluminum conductor? Typically a 10. You do the same thing. You snip it off just inside the profile of the armor so it doesn't impede the connector. Its job is done, folks. I don't know how, I probably get in a year 50 questions from inspectors all over the country. What do you do with that bare conductor? You get rid of it. You don't need it. We're not talking about an equipment ground. It's an aluminum. If you got copper conductors in there and you got an aluminum grounding/bonding conductor in there and you think that you terminate that on something, you're mistaken. You just cut the aluminum grounding/bonding conductor off. Be done with it. Its only job was to touch all those convolutions so it acts as one. So that in a fault condition, it doesn't have to go through the spiral effect and choke itself out. The expanding and collapsing magnetic fields cause a lot more impedance. And then, of course, you get a lot more reactance, and it makes it hard to clear the overcurrent device. So if you, instead of the spiral path back for fault current to rely on, you allow it to jump across the convolutions and it acts as one, then you have a higher probability that you're going to clear the overcurrent protected device. And that's why it touches all the convolutions. Does that make sense? All right, so AC cable, it's already done for you. Okay, so let's bring AC cable back. I'm just saying. But we make both, so whatever you want. And of course, the markings, the last one you can't see on the screen. And again, if I'm adjusting the screen live so that you can see this, and I hate doing this stuff, but I'm going to do it right there. There's your markings. 320.120 says cable shall be marked in accordance with 310.8, except type AC cable shall have ready identification of the manufacturer by distinct external markings on the cable armor throughout its length, stamped in the armor. There's many ways that we mark cable assemblies, non-metallic products, we emboss it. Some of the metal products, we stamp it. MC cable, it's typically on the box. If we PVC jacket MC cable, we'll print it on the markings on top of the actual PVC material. Many ways that we can mark things. 310.8 gives you all of the different ways the manufacturer has to mark something. What's up, Angel? Better late than never, my friend. All right. So that is pretty much, folks, in a nutshell, AC cable. It's a UL4. It's been around a long time. It is, I'm not going to say, people say, which is better, AC or MC cable? When it comes to an installation like 14 gauge, 12 gauge, AC cable, the fact that I don't have to make all of those, that I can use the armor as an equipment ground. If I take it to a listed fitting, to a metal box, I don't have to do something extra. I don't have to have jumpers. It's all bonded together through the armor. It's listed in 250-118 as an equipment grounding conductor. It saves a lot of labor, a lot of time, all those type of things. And I'm like, it makes it good. Whereas MC cable, I got a separate equipment grounding conductor in there. Then I got to take it and bond the box. I got to make all these connections up. Labor. That's why we make a smart ground product, which mimics AC cable, but it's MC cable. And the reason for that is there are a lot of specs out there who will say MC cable. And that doesn't mean you can use AC cable just because it says MC cable. And I'm not going to tell you how many times I've gotten in an argument with an engineer who, by accident, the contractor installed AC cable and the engineer says, no, I spec'd MC cable. And you try to argue with them and say, you know that in that size, AC cable's okay. It works great. They're like, no, it must be MC cable. And then they make the guy rip it all out. And I'm sitting there going, come on, bruh. Let's work together here. Yes, he didn't follow it, but can't you give him a change order, a change variance, allow him, because it works the exact same way. If, okay, somebody made a mistake by selecting it, but it's exactly the same product. It's listed, it works fine. That's the kind of stuff that I deal with on a day-in-and-day basis. Arguments and different type of applications, giving recommendations for what type of wiring method should be used here, there. That's what I do a lot of my day for Encore and Prismium, that type of thing. And you'd be surprised the answers I give to other manufacturers as well, who send people my way anyway, even competitors. I answer questions for their products as well. One, because I truly just want a safe install. And I worked for NEMA. I love all the manufacturers, to be honest with you. There's some that I like better than others, but I think they have initially good intentions. And I believe in what they do. And we wouldn't have the technology and the things that we had today if not for the advancement of manufacturers. So stop hating on the manufacturer, just trying to make a living. Yeah, they charge you money. But at the end of the day, I charge you money for lessons and courses and stuff like that because it's just how the world works. We're in a capitalist society. So let's let it go. Just pay it, move on, carry it over to your customer. They're the ones that have got to pay. Okay, you get my point. All right, let's spin the wheel. If it took me 2 hours to explain something as simple as AC cable, then y'all would have to be here for a freaking week or more if I did all of Article 250, because I am long-winded. And I know this. I don't need any comments on YouTube, on TikTok, Facebook. You're too long-winded. I could never sit and watch you for 2 hours. Do me a favor. Don't do me any favors. I don't do this stuff because I give a shit about how long I do it. I do this stuff because I think people learn it. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, I know people can explain these and could have gone through that in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And I could have, okay? I could have done that. But I like to elaborate, tell stories, talk about it, get your day going. Yes, it's longer, but you know what? It's just how I am, okay? Yeah, all right. All right, folks. Till next time, stay safe, God bless, and join us tomorrow, which I'll try to be briefer, as they say. I'll try to be more, I will try to be speak in brevity. How about that? Take care, everybody. God bless.